Jordan Anderson. I'm the executive director at Alpha House. Alpha House was established in 1972, founded by a few members of a AA originally. So a couple members had an idea. They said that people were struggling in Toronto. There wasn't a lot really at the time. Renaissance Treatment Center opened in 1970, and they were only one building, I believe, at that time. So they could house maybe 15 men. Bellwood was just kind of getting its legs, and there was nothing really else in the community. So they approached the United Church. They were gracious enough to donate this house actually to us. This is the original location, which is now residential. We would never get the zoning nowadays. So they established this place in 1972, opened the doors as a residential treatment center. So it was full-time lockdown programming, 24 hours. You weren't allowed to work, weren't allowed to go to school or do any of those kinds of things. And that program ran for a lot of years like that. It was extremely successful. And then over the years, lots of new treatment centers started growing and popping up, private and fee-for-service and government funded. As that started to happen, Alpha House started to transform to fill a niche. And the really big gap was the continuum of care. What tends to happen is people will want to stop using. They'll go to a detox. It's usually their first spot. And then they find that they're on a wait list for a treatment center for a significant amount of time. They get into a treatment center, and then during that time frame, while they're there and the clarity happens, they realize, I have no place to go. I want to get out of here. I can either go to a shelter or I can live on the street. Most of their families won't take them back. They've only got maybe 28 days abstinent at the time. So we actually converted our program to fill that niche. So in Ontario, there's only really 2 programs that are staff that have that, and they'll be Alpha House and Transition House. So we converted this program about 7-8 years ago to fill the niche, and now we only take clients directly from a treatment center that are homeless or that the staff would deem have an inability to stay clean based on the time frame that they were given at that treatment center. We're fully government funded right now, so we're able to operate for another 50 years if we choose so. This is prime location, I would say. There's some pretty tumultuous parts of Toronto, different support services at places that are built into shelters or like where there's a heavy drug use, heavy drug culture, homelessness. This area has nothing. The Danforth, great food. Broadview, lots of coffee shops and little family-owned convenience stores and grocery stores, and residential. And then right across the street, we have a massive park. There's a free pool across the street, and there are meetings everywhere in this area. So we're grandfathered into a place that wouldn't have probably welcomed us. Luckily, it's been in a place that is quiet and safe, feels like a family kind of location. Sustainable housing, safety and security in terms of emotionally, family, friends, things like that, having a community. I don't know a lot of people that without housing are able to really stay clean. Bouncing around shelter to shelter with a garbage bag on your back can be really stressful. Dangerous things happen on the streets. There's dangerous people, your stuff gets stolen, so having that real solid place that you can call home that is a safe spot is like primary. After that, the safety and security of friends and family, people loving you, caring about you, which is why we usually recommend going to some sort of self-help community to start building that's really strong network and purpose. Having any sense of purpose, whether it be a job, school, even something like sponsoring people if somebody's unable to work or volunteering at some place. I find that when people feel like they're not purposeful in life, whether they are or they aren't, feeling that other people recognize you as purposeful is a huge piece. If everybody wants to feel like they're important, what they're doing in life matters. And I would say people, places, and things as well. If you sit in a barbershop long enough, you're going to get your hair cut. So if you don't eliminate the nefarious people in your life or people who are using, eventually that's going to fall apart. Most of the people that I find here that aren't successful tends to be relationships or jumping back into work too early, trying to get ahead of themselves. We call it sprint into health. We usually try to rein them in a little bit, slow them down, and get them to focus on the basics. Get a place to live, build a community, start working through all that stuff, that mess that you brought with you, right? Let's try to clear that before we start trying to build a life. Let's make a solid foundation. Every one of our clients is placed into long-term housing before they graduate. We'll make sure that they have safe, sustainable, affordable housing before they move on. We prep them all by sending them to Oasis Recovery Society to make sure that they've got a written resume, that they're either in school or working by that point. And our job is to make sure that they're autonomous human beings. I want them to graduate here not needing us. We want them to build a community, to build friends, to have a life, to have a place to live, to have a job, pay their bills, and be productive, contributing members of society before they graduate. So they don't need to come back unless they're coming back to share their success stories at an alumni meeting. Our mission is solely to help men recover from the disease of addiction. We put our sole focus into that. There's a lot of other social problems that happen that we do help them with, but our primary to get them off and to keep them off of the dope. Because as long as they're not picking up, they have every opportunity in the world to have all these other great things happen to them. But as soon as they put that drug in their body, everything falls apart. So we put 100% of our sole focus on not picking up. And how are they going to be capable of doing that? Our values are rooted in integrity, being able to provide the same service that we say we're providing to these guys. We want them to feel like this is their home, not that they're in a center, and that they're not a second-class citizen that is being helped because the government's mandated it, and they get to be treated like their authentic self and as an actual human being for the first time ever. Alpha House isn't really we're not essentially a 12-step based. What we do is we have a mixed model. So we meet people wherever they're at. Most of our staff are in recovery, and the majority of them are 12-step. And we do have our clients go to 12-step meetings. We have 12-step meetings on site, but we have some clients that don't. We do allow clients to go to, Smart Recovery or like Sober Faction or a few different things. I find though the 12-step model, no matter what happens when they graduate, there's a meeting in every city across the world in one of them that they can attend, which is a really great post-treatment resource. We have people who come in here and sponsor guys and do step work here, and it's really great. We're really tethered into that community, but we do give them breath. There are some clients that say, they have an issue with the God word, and we open it up and we don't push it, and they end up where they need to be. So we have a pretty diverse team. We have peer support workers. We have human service counselors, clinical counselors, which are people who finished school and gone through a program called the CECCF. I'm a psychotherapist. One of my specialties is opiates. I worked as an opiate specialist for about 6 years, and my jam is always working with people with trauma. And then Darren Greer, who works downstairs as a case manager, deals with the clients every 2 weeks. And then we have an admissions coordinator. And then we have Ari. Ari is our day program coordinator. So he does things like meditation groups, yoga, Qigong. It's a really diverse group of people. And all of them, with the exception of 2, are affected by the disease of addiction and in their own recovery. We have a success rate of 74%. Now, those numbers are funny, the way people establish stats. Most agencies will base their success rates on having improved social determinants of health. So if you smoked $500 worth of crack a day, Knee-Smoke 499, success. We base ours on 2 years of abstinence, and we have an exceptionally high success rate. But a big piece of that is because these clients are going to treatment and doing preparation work there and then coming here. Having worked in a residential treatment agency, maybe 1% of those clients would be willing to come to a place like this. Because we're post-treatment, we seem to be getting clients that really, really want to do this. Because of that, the success rates go up and up and up. Targeting social determinants of health, targeting housing, making sure that they have a job, making sure that, they have community, and all those basic things really help them, breed success. Right now, our next goal would most likely be to open a second house. It's quite complicated to do. The government of Ontario doesn't always have a lot of accessible funds to do such things, but this is a 50-year proven model. We've been able to show that it works. So now we want to get into a place where we can start duplicating that process and seeing if we can, remove some of the strain on the healthcare system and some of the wait list times by duplicating the process. Me personally, if I had a say outside of my board of directors, I would say that I would like to open one for women. There's no services for women anywhere in Ontario. It's actually really scary. The fact that there's no housing, no post-residential, no pre, there's just treatment. So that's a niche that's needed. Eventually down the road, that would probably be a target that we'd be seeking. So over the last year, we served 20,805 meals. We ran 5,200 individual group sessions. We had 1,820 individual case management sessions. We had 120 mental health sessions. We provided 6,570 individual days of service. So we had 107 clients actually living here over the last year that drastically changed their life. We removed the professional application part. We just added it to the website and they just click download, fill it out, and email it. And once a bed opens, we give them a call and let them know, and we look after the rest. We usually encourage people, once they have a bed date established for treatment, to apply to us early. That way, when they are finishing the end of their cycle, they're guaranteed a bed. We're willing to work with anybody. That's our job. That's what we get into this for. We want to help people. It's easy to look at somebody on the surface and see the things that they've done as them, but we're trying to look underneath and see not the behavior, but the actual person. We have clients that have come here that are murderers, gone to jail for it, or been involved in armed robberies, or a lot of nefarious things, and sometimes they're scary. But most of them, when you get underneath, there's this really soft little shell. Whatever it looks like on the surface, we know that there's this jewel that's underneath that just needs to be brushed off.